You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today, we're looking at some players who might be available on your waiver wire. Season-long value, short-term value, hot streak type players who are see whether they're worth an ad, and some flyer types that we could be looking at as potential later season options. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Indeed. Let's start by looking at some players who probably should be on your roster in your standard 12 and 10 team leagues. The first bloke I'm going to talk about here is Tomas Satoransky. At the start of the season, Satoransky was still putting up some okay assist and steal numbers, but it was really tough to roster him. He wasn't taking shots. The minutes were stuck in the mid-20s because we were getting bullshit like Chris Dunn and Kobe White stealing that playing time. Of late, Jim Boylan, the old Joker himself, he's realizing that, yes, Satoransky is our best option and we should be playing him more minutes, and that is resulting in a top 65 rank over the last 2 weeks. The minutes are marginally up, but what we're seeing is the usage spiking, the assists are still good, the steals are at nice levels, the shooting's coming around, and Tomas should be a 12-team league guy across nearly all formats. A guy that's currently dealing with an injury is Danny House of the Houston Rockets. He's still available in 54% of leagues, and he should not be. He's the 80th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. It does only include 4 games for him because he has had an illness and he has had a shoulder issue. They're not things that look to bother him long term. He gets steals. He hasn't even blocked a shot in that time, and that's normally what he's able to do. He hits threes. He's hyper efficient. He's the 75th ranked player over the course of the season. There's no way he should be available in as many leagues as he is. Markelle Fultz also putting up some good numbers at the moment. He's the 92nd ranked player over the last 2 weeks. He's available in 58% of Yahoo leagues. He should be rostered in every single league. Yes, when Nikola Vucevic comes back, it will have marginal impact on Fultz, but I think his minutes are going to continue to rise as the season goes on. He gets steals, he gets assists. His shooting has been fantastic. 80% free throw guy, 50% from the field, and this is one of the things we talked about with Fultz. Man, he can't shoot. Well, he still can't hit his threes. He's at under 30% there, but everything else is going in, and I think he's going to continue to get better and better, and I wouldn't be shocked if this season or maybe next season he is a top 50 player, because we aren't even seeing the blocks come. He can be a 0.8, 0.9 blocks per game guy, like a Danny Green, a Joshie Richardson, a Johnny Wall, those sort of players as guards who can block shots. Fultz can do that, so that is a significant room for him to improve in that area. Let's look now at Davis Bertans of the Washington Wizards. Bertans should be available. Now, he had a real stinker last time out, but he is still, including that turd, 61st over the last 2 weeks. He's hitting 4 threes a game, 15 points a game, 5 boards. He's not doing a huge amount else, but the percentages are really rock solid, and that's helping his production. This is a guy that's always been an elite shooter. I don't think he's going to stop being an elite shooter. He's doing more than what he was doing for San Antonio, and he should be on a roster available in 38% of Yahoo leagues. This one I'm a little bit iffier on, and that is Kelly Olynyk of the Miami Heat. Now, Olynyk, I have said for years and years and years, if he gets a consistent 28 to 30 minute a night role, he will be a top 100 bordering on top 70 type of fantasy player. Well, over the last 2 weeks, he's ranked 66th. He's playing 27 minutes a game. He's averaging 12 and 7, and he's not even blocking any shots, just 0.2 blocks there. But he's hitting threes. The shots are going in at a high rate, but most important are those minutes. Now, he is available in 56% of Yahoo leagues. There are going to be nights where he plays 20 minutes or the shots don't go in, and we get Myers Leonard throwing in there and taking those minutes away from Olynyk. But with how he's playing at the moment, the way the Heat are using him, it is pretty tough to leave him on the wire. Look, he's a definite 14-team league ad. And he's probably someone that I do want in 12-teamers as well, given the way that he's currently playing. The next 2 blokes I'm looking at are some injury players who are probably set to return at some point, and the first one of those is Kevon Looney of the Golden State Warriors. Looney is available in 79% of leagues. Fair enough, because he hasn't played this season apart from about one half of a game. but I think he comes in, he takes the starting center job, he plays mid-20s in minutes, and he puts up maybe top 120, maybe top 100 numbers, and this is the time where he's still got a couple of games away from him returning most likely, and it'll be slow to start off, but he is worth a stash in a lot of different formats, especially your standards. And the next guy who is ahead of schedule in his return, that is Fanta Pants Kevon Huerter. He looks like he's going to be out 1 or 2 more games at most. He was putting up some really nice numbers before this latest shoulder injury, well ahead of schedule in his recovery. So he's another guy that we could look to maybe approach the top 100. Cam Reddish isn't getting it done. Alan Crabshaw isn't getting it done. DeAndre Bembry's fine, but he's a backup. They want Huerter playing 30 plus minutes. It will come, and the numbers will be there, and that will really help. So he is a guy to add at this point in 12-team formats. The next bloke. A second Washington Wizards player, Flaming Mo Wagner, is available in 72% of Yahoo leagues. Yes, he is missing Sunday's game with an ankle injury, but he is putting up really strong numbers. Efficiency is absolutely through the roof, and even with his recent lack of defensive numbers, he's still the 103rd ranked player over the last 2 weeks in only 20 minutes a game. So if there's any situation where they decide to play him alongside Tom Bryant, I'm not sure that's a great idea, but they have toyed with that idea of playing those blokes together. And if they do, Wagner's minutes go to 23, 24, then he pushes into that top 100 pretty comfortably. And I don't think I would be leaving him on the waiver wire at this point. And the last guy on my list here, there is still more waiver wire guys to come, but the last guy on this page of the list is Maximum Derek White.
Maximum Derek.
White has taken over the starting point guard job in San Antonio. He is out playing DeJounte Murray. Now, there are going to be annoyances. There are going to be nights when they split minutes. I said before the season, I think White is the better player than Murray, and I think he should earn more minutes than Murray. I also want them to play together a lot more. I want to see how that develops. White is not a 100% must-add in all situations, but the current trend of things is interesting. If he gets 28 a night, he's a top 70 guy. That's probably a pipe dream for him to play that much, but it is absolutely within the realms of possibility. And I wouldn't want to leave a bloke like that with the ability to hit threes, to block shots, to get steals, to be hyper efficient, to get assists on the waiver wire when you're finding that sort of player can be pretty tough to do. So he's a guy that I'd prioritize behind Satoransky, behind Fultz, behind Bertans, behind most of these guys that I mentioned, just because of the uncertainty in the Spurs rotation, but he absolutely has to be looked at as an option. The next bunch of guys are some short-term players. The first one here I want to look at is Nerlens Noel. He could be a long-term one, but the way that they're using Steven Adams, you feel like it's to do with his knee issue, and that's giving Noel some pretty significant minutes that are working in his favor. We know that he is an excellent steals and blocks guy. He's 71st ranked over the last 2 weeks, available in 57% of leagues. He is a player that I do think you want to look at. Dario Saric of the Phoenix Suns, he is up and down, definitely. While Aaron Baines was out, he was beasting. The game that Baines returned, he did drop back off, but the minutes were still there. While DeAndre Ayton is out, I think that does help Saric. It also helps that Frank Kaminsky is terrible, so we're going to get more of those Saric minutes. I don't necessarily love him long-term, because I think when the Suns are back at full health, he will struggle to be that guy who's a must-roster 12-team league guy. He'll sort of be a back-end type of player, but for now, while Ayton is out, he is worth a look. Alec Burks of the Golden State Warriors is someone I think we need to be looking at. D'Angelo Russell's only maybe a week max away from returning. So in the short term, while Russell's out, Burks is worth considering. Now, what they do in terms of this lineup remains to be seen. Do they put Russell in over Burks and play him as a shooting guard alongside Draymond Green there and push Glenn Robinson down to the 2? Or do they move the triangle, Eric Pascal to the bench, and we see Green move back to power forward? There are multiple options, but Burks is playing well at the moment. He's quite inconsistent, we know that. But over the last 2 weeks, he's the 64th ranked player. He's available in 50% of leagues. He is a guy that I'd be looking at adding. The next player, Moe Bumba.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Now, Bumba's minutes aren't sky high, but what he is doing, he is blocking shots. 2.2 a game over his last 5 contests. The shooting is a bit of a roller coaster at times. Sometimes you'll get big rebounds, big scoring nights, but he's hitting over a 3 a game and blocking over 2 shots per game, and that's enough in this short term. He's never going to be a 27-minute a night guy. He's not going to get to that level. I don't have any ideas that that's what is happening, but in 21, 22, 23 a night, he's providing this short-term value while Nikola Vucevic is out. Chris Dunn of the Chicago Bulls. Now, really, it's more of a specialist type situation if you're looking for steals with Dunn, and they have actually dropped 1.3 per game over his last 7 games. The shooting is abysmal. He's not very good at all. But with Otto Porter out, we saw him start at small forward last game with Chandler Hutchison also sidelined. So there is some short-term value there in Dunn if we're hoping that the steals get back, remembering that his steal rate at the start of the season was highly unsustainable and historically good, and those things aren't going to stick, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. Probably the guy that you're wanting to hear about, and I should have talked about him earlier, Tyus Jones of the Memphis Grizzlies. With Ja Morant dealing with a back issue that's going to be week to week, that is never a good sign for a back injury on a shit team with a rookie who's already coming in with injury concerns who they want to take care of. That is not good. Tyus Jones is going to assume the starting role. He's going to get assists. He's not going to get turnovers if you care about that sort of thing. He's going to get steals. He'll score in limited bunches, but his value there of getting, maybe he gets 7 assists a game with 1.6 steals. Like, that is a real possibility for Jonesy, and that should get you really, really hard. He is a guy that can put up numbers. Again, finding this sort of player off the waiver wire, he is an excellent short-term ad. It might be for 2 weeks, and the long-term value is not there at all. But for now, he is a guy that we look at that can come in and give you these big assist numbers, and is someone that you should be dedicating your streaming spot to getting. The little dog, Glenn Robinson III, is on my list here as another option short-term with D'Angelo Russell out. He's putting up some pretty strong numbers. He is quite inconsistent, but he is putting up some interesting numbers, and as is Duncan Robinson. So we've got the 2 Robinsons here. I only wrote Robinson down once. Dunk Robinson, they are keeping him in the starting lineup over Justice Winslow. He's hitting a ton of threes recently as well, Duncan, as is Glenn. They are more just short-term stream options, because I think when Winslow starts to get his minutes back in Miami and they change that lineup, Robinson will lose out. What we'll see in Golden State when Russell comes back, that'll have an impact on Glenn, but both of those guys can be at least streamed. Nemanja Bjelica of the Sacramento Kings. Bagley's going to return soon, and that's going to leave Bjelica useless, but for the time being, short-term value is there to be a back-end 12-team league guy. And the last guy on this list is Garrett Temple. While Karis LeVert is out, Temple is putting up some strong numbers. 90th ranked over the last 2 weeks, surprisingly, and available in 86% of leagues. In all 14s, I'd really consider him. 12s is a little bit touch and go, but he's hitting threes at a high rate. He's hitting them at 40%, which is not entirely unsustainable. He's getting 3 assists a game, a steal a game, a block a game. They're all really useful numbers, and the minutes are definitely there for Garrett Temple. Let's go through some other names here on my short-term list. Cory Joseph of the Sacramento Kings. If you need some assists and steals, he's not a points league guy. He's a categories guy for assists and steals. He's significantly behind, say, Tyus Jones, but he is providing those numbers. LaMarcus Aldridge is dealing with issues in San Antonio, so Rudy Gay and Jakob Poeltl are having short-term value that you can have a look at there. Poeltl was starting, moved to the bench last game, but he's back to starting with Aldridge out, so there's something there to see with him. And the next guy is Carmelo Anthony, who is putting up some numbers. I still don't necessarily look at him as a must-roster guy across all leagues, but he is the 109th ranked player in the last 2 weeks, which includes all his games. 18 points per game is nothing to sneeze at, 46% from the field. Now, if that percentage does drop off, which is a real possibility because he's hitting 37% of his threes and 50% from twos, that could fall off. He's offering nothing in assists, steals, and blocks. But Melo, at the moment, he is a short-term 12-team league ad. It could go sour, but for now, Melo is someone to look at. Ken Birch of the Orlando Magic, similarly to Bumba, his upside isn't as high as Bumba, but he's going to play more minutes. He's probably more of a 14-team league ad. Dillon Brooks of the Memphis Grizzlies, more usage to go his way with Ja Morant out. He's pretty tough to roster just because of his inconsistency, and despite playing 29 minutes a game over the last 2 weeks, he's ranked 239th because he cannot hit shots at the moment. He doesn't do very much else outside of score. The steals at 1 per game is alright, but nothing else is interesting, but there could be a bump in usage for him. While Timmy Hardaway is starting for the Dallas Mavericks, he's putting up some numbers. It's coming on some really unsustainable shooting, but 17 points and 3 threes a game is hard to ignore. Not much else happening there. 55% shooting, 56 from 3. We understand that's going to drop, but he is a top 50 player over the last 2 weeks. So there is something there with Tim Hardaway for us to take a look at. If we have a look at some players also on a hot streak, Marquise Chris, I don't know where those minutes fit when Russell comes back, but he's playing well enough to be a short-term guy. Justin Holiday, also on a real roll, especially with his defensive numbers in Indiana. That'll drop off significantly when Oladipo returns. In Washington, you've got Ish Smith and Jordan McRae. Both of these guys really putting up some strong numbers. McRae's a scoring type option. Smith is putting up some assists. They can be some short-term guys. The Wizard, Omari Spellman in Golden State, also is similarly going to be affected by D'Angelo returning. Dondre Bembry with Herter out is providing some interesting numbers. I've got Robinson there again. We've already talked about both those Robinson blokes. Georgie Hill putting up some nice numbers. I'm not sure how much I buy into that. In fact, I don't at all. And then Terence Davis of the Toronto Raptors. While Kyle Lowry's out, he's providing nice 14 to 16 team league value. And then I think we go on to our last list of the day. Some flyer types for long-term. Darius Garland, the minutes are there, but the production is really, really poor on most nights. You can see him starting to get it together, but it is really in a situation where you're looking to stash someone. He's averaging 14 points over his last 7 games and still is not inside the top 175. Next guy, if in deeper leagues, D'Anthony Melton. With Ja Morant out, Melton moves into a backup role. He can accumulate steals with the best of them, so he is a name to watch for those moderately to deeper sized leagues. Dante DiVincenzo's a flyer type if he gets that job over. Wes Matthews, when Chris Middleton is back in the starting lineup, that's one to watch. Keita Bates-Diop for Minnesota, he's been playing extraordinarily well. And while Jake Layman is out, he's playing well. He's also been playing minutes and playing better than Robert Covington. Not saying he's going to start, but it's absolutely just a name to keep an eye on. While in Portland, Skal Labissière has played well with Hassan Whiteside there, taking minutes off Whiteside outside of the last game where Whiteside played those big minutes and blocked all those shots against the Bulls. But Skal is playing well enough to be a deeper league guy, and if some point Whiteside gets injured, Labissière, I think, is going to be a standard league ad. That'll do it for my waiver wire show. Again, not covering all options here, of course. Can't talk about every single player. Leave a comment below if there's a guy that I didn't talk about and you want to get my feedback or the community's feedback on that guy as well. Follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball, Instagram Locked On Fantasy Basketball, and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and make sure you never miss an episode, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.